Hey guys, it's Jake here at Canadian Cutting Edge, and today we're doing the review of the Hapstone M2, the new system for the second half of 2018 for sharpening your knives. I've had this thing for 2 weeks, a little over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks now, and hey, I think you're going to be wanting to watch this video, so stick around for the Hapstone M2 review coming at you right now. When you buy your Hapstone, you're going to get a series of stones. And if you get the base series of stones, well, you get 3 stones. The top one is 1200 grit. And once you've assembled this, I showed you in the video when I did the unboxing how to assemble it. I didn't get everything just right. This is intended to just go through the bottom like that. This rod is one piece. And then you use, let me just take this off to simplify it. And then you, okay, stay there. And then you use this piece, this little ring that slides over to lock it in place so that it won't change height. So you put that all the way in there and you slide this down, push up on the bottom, and then just tighten it up. And now it's in place. Now it can pivot because you want it to be able to pivot because this part goes on here. And when you tighten this down, now the whole rod pivots along. You see this spot pivoting? So that's to go from one side of the knife to the other side of the knife. So that's quite good. You can add just a tiny bit of lubrication there. Very, very little. Don't use much at all. Just a tiny little bit of lubrication there just to keep everything going really nicely. Now, this rod here has measurements on it. And if I turn them forward, there's the measurements. I have found that they are fairly accurate if the edge of your blade is lined up with this orange piece just ahead of it. So if the cutting edge is right there and you've got a brand new stone, then that lines up fairly well. So if you just can't afford to get a digital angle finder, which I really think you should invest in, but if it's going to take you another week or two, a month or two to get it, you can go by these numbers and get a pretty good representation. Just make sure that you use stones that are basically the same thickness so that you'll keep the same angle for the whole job. And so, yeah, it just slides on there like this, black side facing away if you've got it in this orientation. And you can just tighten it up. And the numbers work on the top of this black square. So if I go right there and I have the line right there, that's 25 degrees. And the way the stone goes in, there's a spring here that pulls back. And you just put your stone in one side, pull it back, and have it that way. Now, if it's too loose and you can't get it on, that's because you've got this too far over here. So now you try to put the stone in, and that's too far away. So you slide it all the way forward. And then what I do is I take it out and I move it forward another almost half an inch. And tighten it up. That way, when I go to put it on, I can pull this back and let it in. And that way, this spring is holding it tight. So definitely less than half an inch. Around a quarter inch is actually quite good. And now the stone's in there quite secure. And you've got a flat spot here. And you've got a wooden handle. Now you just need to put your knife on here. Okay, so now it's time to show how to adjust these plates and what they're for. I'm just going to take this out of the way here. To secure your knife on here, we've got magnets that helps hold the knife down. So let's just loosen these things up and show what they do. These slide up and down, and their design is to support the spine of the blade. The reason is you need the spine of the blade supported because as you're grinding on it, you don't want it to move at all. So the magnets are here in order to hold the knife down. Now, sometimes a knife, depending on the shape of the grind, will rock in place here. If it's a hollow grind with a narrow shoulder, the side of the blade, staying flat, if it doesn't have much of that and it's got a hollow grind, it might have a tough time holding it flat like this, and it might want to go rocking up and down. All kinds of different knives will have different properties for that. And so this does one of the supports of holding the knife in place. So the first thing I want to do is I put my knife on here and I slide it all the way that way that it can comfortably go. On this knife, it's the thumb studs that touch first. So the thumb studs are touching the body of the sharpening system. And then I slide everything up so that the cutting edge clears the corners of the metal, so it's up ahead of all of that. And these magnets are strong, so you don't always want to just let the knife fall and hit that hard. You could also put some tape across there to keep from scratching your blades. I'm just keeping it exactly as factory for demonstration purposes. So the thumb stud's touching, and I want this cutting edge to be in line with, well, I'll just say in line with these buttons, in line with these knobs. That's what you want, because you want it perpendicular to the sharpening as much as possible. Of course, the blade, the belly of the blade, you know, you just can't help for that. But the main section of the knife, just straight. So you line that up, and then you slide this black slider up. And I'm just ignoring the orange one, letting it do whatever it does. And what I want to do here is I want to put the side of this slider in line with the side of the frame. So when I move it up, I want to keep everything in line with itself. So nice and square to the frame. And that means that it touches the blade here and touches nothing on that side. And that's just fine. So just snug up those wheels. They don't take an awful lot of pressure. Just snug them up a little bit. And then you do the same thing with the orange slider. You move it up until it touches the spine of the blade and snug it up. Now the way it works is it's got 2 points of contact plus the magnets. Plus, it's a good idea to get in the habit of doing this each time, and that's just to give the knife support closer to the cutting edge. So you just push that up, have it touch the side of the blade, and snug it up, and there you go. Now, when you go to change the blade around, I can make it match perfectly because I put it down, I slide the thumb stud up next to the metal, and then I push the knife down to touch the black spot and the orange spot, and it's even, and it's all ready to go. And oh, I forgot to take into account that orange piece of steel, didn't I? I would be grinding some of that orange piece of steel right now if I went to grinding it. So that's not going to help. So what that means is I've got to move the whole system that way. So I'll just loosen this out of the way, and I'll move everything forward a little bit. Put that back up. Still not far enough. That's going to be good about there. So now I loosen up these dials to make the adjustment again, all three of them. Slide it up and do the same thing. Keep it as even as possible to both sides while going up. And then you tighten them down. And you do the orange one too. Now those are all snug. Snug this up. Now that's all good. That's all even. It's not going to touch that plate. Put it back to this side and see what I think of this side. And this side's pretty good. So it's going to clear that orange plate right there. I can see it. You might not be able to see it from your angle, but yeah, it clears it. And if it didn't, just do adjustment again. Just keep adjusting it until you get it right. Usually it's only one. Sometimes it's 2 tries. And you'll get it. That's after you've got a little bit of experience. You know, the first few times it'll be slow and frustrating, but you should get used to it without much of a problem at all. So once that's all set up, you just take this arm, you set it to whatever sharpness you want. Let's say 20 degrees, so 20 is at the top there. And I snug this up, and now I can sharpen the knife. Easy squeezy. I like to always, when I get the higher grits, finish the higher grits with these long sweeping motions that go largely along the edge, but not exactly. The next thing that I have to be aware of when I'm sharpening the knife is I have to be aware of stroking over and past the edge of the blade and understroking this way and coming onto the surface of the knife. This system doesn't have any stops in it. The more expensive systems like the V series, the V6, the V7, they've got little stops on it so that you can't do that over travel, and those are adjustable. This doesn't have that. Hopefully they'll add that as an add-on kit that you can buy if you want to, or you can just get in the habit of being careful when you're sliding your slider back and forth to stay on the stone and not get off. If you get off the stone, you'll damage the side of your knife and it's going to scratch up the surface of the main bevel of your knife, and you don't want that. So how you actually sharpen a knife? Well, you can watch my other videos that have sharpening systems, and I talk extensively about how this sharpening works. Any system is essentially the same on the part about how the stone interacts with the edge of the blade. And then you just make it happen per the unit that you have. This one's pretty simple. You just go back and forth. I sharpen on the upstroke and the backstroke, no problem. I let it grind either way. And I don't worry about building up a burr. With this kind of sharpening, you just want to get a clean sharpening all the way across. And an easy way to verify it is take a marker, put a black marker line on there, and then you slide your stone over it, and you see where the marker's been rubbed away, and that's where you've been sharpening. And that's easy to see if you need to sharpen some more or not. I do one grit, so a coarse grit on one side, and then I do the coarse grit on the other side, and then I move up a grit, and I do this side, and then I turn it over, and that's the least number of turns that you can do it. And once your edge is all done, you're at 1,000 grit or more, maybe less. It all depends on what kind of edge you want. If you just want a hard working edge, especially if you need to be cutting rope with a little bit of a sawing and stuff, you might only go up to 400, 600 grit. But if you want a really fine polished edge, you go over 1,000 easily. So there you go. That's all there is to this system. It works quite easily. It works quite well. Very simple to put together by hand. You don't need any tools. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Remember, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.